with the Kevin Weeks, it seems like he's the only person that really gets under Whitey's skin during this trial. Kevin Weeks was kind of this younger gangster who Whitey was basically grooming to be his replacement. And I mean, he was kind of his replacement because Kevin Weeks does run the Winter Hill Gang until I think 2000. Mm-hmm. And then he kind of gives up because it's revealed that Whitey Bulger had been an FBI informant this entire time and he didn't know. Yeah. And I feel like it's very much like a... talk
about a shock.
Yeah, just like, this entire thing. Like, I've been groomed to be this position by a guy who was
There's so many examples
going against everything he told me was, like, sacred.
There's so many examples of that.
Yeah.
Throughout mafia history now.
Yeah.
You know, like, I go back to our guy, Vinny Gorgeous.
Right.
Who, you know, I mean, he essentially was ratted out by his own boss.
Yes.
You know? Anyway, we got to wrap this thing up, but I do want to bring something up. I know it's not necessarily touched on to the extent in the book that it is in the documentary, but obviously I think it's pretty safe to say that the government's narrative, get ready for this shocker, is not entirely accurate.
No, I think it's ridiculous. I think it's the idea that it was only two people is ridiculous.
No, I understand that, but my question is, in the documentary specifically, they bring up the idea that Connolly was running basically a phony top tier, whatever you want to call it, echelon informant.
Yes.
They bring up his file, and there's a lot of repeated stuff in it and a bunch of basically nonsense mumbo jumbo. It's 700 pages, which is supposed to be over the course of whatever amount of years, 20 something years, maybe more, 30 years, I think. And then it shows examples of actual top echelon informant files.
You're talking about Greg Scarpa.
Yeah, you're talking about 50, 60,000 page volumes. My question is, was he actually... Here's the thing. We know the government was corrupt. We know that their official narrative is bullshit. What I'm on the fence about is, was he actually a legitimate informant for the FBI, or was he controlling them and just paying them for information? In the documentary, he has the quote where he goes, I don't give, I take. Or
he goes, we're not selling, we're buying.
Right. And I don't see anything as to why that couldn't be the case.
I don't see any reason. All right, so no, I don't think that... I don't think that Whitey Bulger wasn't a legitimate informant for the FBI.
You think he was a legitimate?
No, I think he wasn't a legitimate informant.
I tend to agree with you.
I think that he was paying off John Connolly along with multiple other people in the FBI, and to kind of keep this scam going so that it wouldn't be suspicious that they're constantly seen with Whitey Bulger, they open up an informant...
which was BS.
Yes, they open up
and
him as an informant.
That would explain why his file was essentially BS.
Yes. So the reason why I tried not to bring up the theory that Whitey Bulger was never an informant was because this book specifically, the documentary is different, but this book specifically, it's talking about basically like that doesn't matter. Like if he was an informant giving them all this information, it still wouldn't justify.
Well, it's almost worse.
It's almost worse. And the book is
because then you're officially signing off on murder.
Yes, but basically saying like this case with Whitey Bulger is not an isolated incident. That this is a program that was basically designed for criminals to exploit it. And you talk about Greg Scarpa, who for years was a gangster in Brooklyn for the Colombo family, who he at least murdered 50 people.
Yeah.
You talk about Willie Boy Johnson, who eyewitnesses have him kidnapping people for John Gotti. He never faced prosecution for it. I mean, he was murdered, but he was never going to face prosecution for it.
But he was a true informant.
He wasn't a true informant.
Yeah.
So was Greg Scarpa was a true informant. But the book, what they're trying to make of just like this is a problem with the program as a whole. This is not.
And they closed the program, right?
I mean, the mafia is basically gone. There's no need for it anymore. But the top echelon informant,
that's what I mean,
for the most part, has been disbanded.
Right.
For the most part, like, they don't do that anymore. And nowadays, there's a lot more people who are just willing to cooperate.
Yeah.
Who are,
it's hard to find people who don't cooperate now. When you hear of someone who's like not cooperating, it's,
and I don't know if you're talking about just like the FBI really wanted to take down the mafia and this is what they were willing to do, of just like, well, okay, we're putting one murderer is on the street, but we're getting 20 and we're getting people who are up there and making high decisions. I guess that was something they were willing to live with.
Yeah.
This is the argument that TJ English makes of like we can't just look at this as Whitey Bulger. We need to look at this as how the FBI was the FBI was treating informants altogether.
No, I agree. It's a hell of a book. It's a hell of a documentary.
It is where the bodies were buried. Yeah, but that's the final thought I just want to say of, no, I don't believe he was a true informant.
I agree.
But it does not matter. It doesn't matter. In the long run, it doesn't matter because historically, this is how informants were treated.